Welcome to the Central Bucks Chamber of Commerce Carbon Neutrality Environmental Seminar. I'm Scott Little with Harleysville Bank, and I'm the co-chair of the Architectural and Environmental Committee. This year, the committee thought for Earth Day 2021, it would be interesting to find out what area businesses and chamber members are doing to protect the environment and to reduce their carbon footprint. This morning, I'm joined by Melissa Matarese with Mesa Lifestyle, and Melissa's an educator on how to live a more sustainable lifestyle. Not only does she educate people, but she's also living the life. Melissa, tell us, we're sitting here in front of her tiny home today. Tell us what motivated you to build a tiny home.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be a part of this program. And how it all started was really from a childhood dream. I wanted to build my own home ever since I was a little girl and an artist. So as I kind of came into that stage of life to build a home, I started to wake up to the environmental crisis as well, and seeing how much of a deterrent it can be to build a conventional home because of the environmental impacts that it has. So I chose to go with an off-grid tiny house on wheels.
It's awesome. So you mentioned off-grid. Tell me and our viewers what off-grid actually means.
Sure. So off-grid means that I'm not hooked up to any public systems, no electricity, no water, things of that nature. So here at the tiny house, I'm powered completely by solar. I have 6 panels on the roof and 2 large lithium-ion batteries. That gives me more energy and power than I can imagine. I catch my own rainwater and filter that for all of my water needs. I use a composting toilet, I grow some of my own food, I compost my food scraps. So trying to create as many closed loop systems in the house as possible.
That's awesome. So you live the lifestyle and you educate people. So tell us a little bit about, you just launched a new program, right? It's called BEEyond Sustainability. Tell our viewers what that's all about.
That's right. So I just wanted to help people live more sustainably, and I created this program. It's all virtual education, so you can take singular courses or the entire program, and it gives you actionable steps that can be applied to any home, not just a tiny home, any conventional home out there, providing people with habit change, mindful habit change, and also systems that can be implemented or added into your home to create less waste and do good for the environment.
I have to ask, I'm going to go off script now. Is there one or item that you think most people embrace when they go through the program?
I think just how really accessible it is. I've really broken it down to make it so that people can make change immediately. Not have to buy some big system or make some big life change. You know, one of the courses is called Eco Mind, and that's really about more of the psychological connection to nature and getting people to just kind of get a new perspective on how we live as modern humans.
That's great.
Yeah, the house was built by my own 2 hands and our lovely community and some family members and friends. Delaware Valley University, where I teach yoga, was kind enough to offer me a plot of land on campus that was visible to the road so people could participate and come by and see the build-in process. And built it from the trailer up. It's all made out of recyclable and renewable resources. 95% of the house is made out of reclaimed items, and then also the systems are so wonderful. I learned so much about off-grid living and conservation of resources in the process of building the house. As you can see, there's 6 solar panels on the roof, and then inside the end of the house where the utility closet is, there's 2 big lithium-ion batteries, so that's how I get electricity. And then for water catchment, the water comes down the metal roof. Metal roofs are best for collecting rainwater. Goes into the gutter's slightly angled, and it feeds into a 50-gallon internal holding tank for water. But then when that is full, you can see the white pipe that runs along down the end of the house here. That fills a 50-gallon external tank that then I can pump back into the system if I start running low.
That's awesome. So what did you say would be one of the biggest challenges that you didn't expect living in the town?
The solar panels in the winter. If you get snow and it covers the panels, you don't get energy. So this winter we got a lot of snow, and I needed to climb up on the roof often and clear the panels off. And something I learned was that you need to clear all the snow off all the panels. Like I can easily reach 3 with this extension rod thing that I have, but so I was only clearing 3 at the beginning of the storms, and I was running out of power, and I couldn't figure out why. Because panels need to be completely clear. So yeah, climbing up ladders in the middle of winter. Luckily, I did design a little roof deck area into the house, so that makes it a little bit easier to clear the panels. But yeah, that's been a little bit of a challenge.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing your challenges and your love of the tiny home. Thank you.
Thank you.
So where can they find this at?
My website, mesalifestyle.com, under Eco Education.
Great. Well, Melissa, I want to thank you for your time today. And I want to thank our viewers for checking out the Central Bucks Chamber of Commerce's 2021 Earth Day seminar. I also want to thank the Architectural and Environmental Community for the work they did this year. And I want to invite our viewers to our live Zoom event. So watch out for a link. The live Zoom event is going to be on May 7th, Friday at 12 p.m. And you can talk to Melissa and you can talk to our other folks who are interviewed for the session and learn how you can help to protect our environment and reduce your carbon footprint. So on behalf of the Chamber and the committee, I want to thank you for your time today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Today, I'm joined by Ellen Mook, staff engineer with Langan Engineering and Environmental Services, and Linda Kelly, carbonfund.org Foundation. She's the Vice President of Partnerships. Welcome both of you today, and thank you for participating.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks. So we're going to start with Langan. I'd like to start off with you, Ellen. How did Langan get involved in carbon neutrality?
So Langan first got involved in offsetting our carbon footprint at our annual managers meeting in 2014. And from there, it just kind of grew to offsetting our plane travel and business travel. And eventually Langan became completely carbon neutral in 2018 using carbonfund.org.
Great. So I'm curious then. So what are the carbon emissions of the firm? I mean, how do you even go about measuring it and what's included and what's excluded from carbon emissions?
So Langan is a firm of about 1,300 employees, and we have offices across the United States and internationally. And in 2019, our firm-wide emissions were about 3,284 metric tons, which averages out to about 2.7 metric tons per employee. We haven't calculated our 2020 total yet, but given the pandemic, we assume our carbon footprint's probably a little bit less than last year. And so to calculate our carbon footprint, we take into account mileage from business-related travel, office energy use. Our mileage is tracked through coordination with the accounting department and also using employee expense use travel to and from sites, meaning using personal vehicles, plane, train, taxi, and other means of mass transport. Langan also has company vehicles that we record mileage on, but employee travel to and from work, so commuting, is excluded in our carbon offset calculations. For energy office use, we have energy meters in our larger offices, but not all of our offices. The offices that we do have these meters in account for about half of our total workforce, so the energy from these meters is averaged across the entire firm. So it's not an exact calculation. This office energy accounted for about 1,100 metric tons of carbon in 2019, and those office energy meters measure natural gas and electric use.
Okay, great. So you're doing all of this extra work, you're measuring all of this, but how do you actually offset the carbon? How are you doing that?
So to offset our carbon emissions, we use carbonfund.org, and Linda will explain more about how the organization functions, but we generally provide a report to carbonfund.org with our carbon emissions, and we break these down into 3 categories: electricity and heating, air and travel, and car business. For us, we have about a third of our carbon footprint coming from each of these three categories. We also, in addition to these three categories, we offset our material usage. And this is something we actually don't calculate, but we just estimate it's 10% of our total metric tons. So once we provide all this information to carbonfund.org, our sustainability team will send out a survey to the company asking all the employees which carbonfund.org program we want to contribute our offsets to. And this can include programs such as reforestation or solar panel farms. And that is what our carbon offset payment goes towards.
Okay, great. Well, I think now would be the time. Linda, I want to had some questions for you. So how does Carbon Fund actually work?
Sure. Carbon Fund is a 501c3 environmental nonprofit organization, and we really approach businesses of all sizes, all industries, anywhere in the world, and individuals, and give them the opportunity to work with us to assess their carbon footprint, much as Ellen has described, from annual business activities, look for ways first to reduce those emissions, and then for companies like Langan that choose to take really the environmental responsibility for the impact of their operational emissions, they can make donations through Carbon Fund, which we use to support third-party validated and verified voluntary carbon offset projects around the world that are reducing carbon emissions through their activities. And so that sort of balances out the carbon footprint of a business operation by supporting carbon reductions that a project's achieving.
Okay, I'm going to go off a little bit of script, but what would be an example of one of those carbon offsetting activities?
So projects fall into three categories: energy efficiency projects, which are based on a new technology, a new invention that accomplishes the same work but uses less fossil fuel; and then forestry or other land conservation based projects; and renewable energy, so wind farms, solar arrays, small hydroelectric projects, and methane gas capture projects. They're all doing something in their activities, those projects, that are either avoiding, reducing, or sequestering carbon dioxide emissions.
Great. So, but this sounds like it's really perfect for like the larger company that has a handle on it. Like Langan's done an amazing job of actually measuring where they're at. Can a small firm without that ability actually use Carbon Fund to offset their carbon emissions?
Yeah, they sure can. We actually have a program that's geared for new businesses, startups, and small businesses with 20 or fewer full-time employees. And it doesn't require that they actually calculate their estimated annual operating emissions. We've established minimum donation amounts for annual enrollment in this program, and it allows a company to get started, to begin a carbon neutrality path. And so they make a donation which neutralizes a certain quantity of carbon emissions, and then we help them with what they can say about what they're doing. They can say that they're a carbon-free business partner. They can say they've neutralized X quantity of carbon emissions. Until they get to the point where they can actually calculate their own estimated annual operating emissions, they really can't say we're a carbon neutral company, but they can say that they've taken the first steps, that they've begun a journey towards sustainability and carbon neutrality.
So I'm assuming there's specific programs then that they can pick and choose from what level they want to be at.
Yeah, and they're tiered by the number of full-time employees for companies with, again, 20 or fewer full-time employees.
Great. Well, thank you, Linda. I want to circle back to you, Ellen, at Langan, and ask you the question. So are there any other activities outside of Carbon Fund that you're doing right now to increase your sustainability and lower carbon?
So there are a couple of activities I can talk about that we've done in the Doylestown office, and actually each Langan office has different programs that they implement, but I can just speak to what I do at the Doylestown office. So we've participated in a CSA program with a local farm that has produce delivered to our offices for employees who sign up. And while that isn't directly related to our carbon emissions at our Doylestown office, buying produce locally certainly contributes to carbon reduction overall in a general sense. We also help hold various volunteer events, a lot of them which include reforestation, and we actually had a recent riparian zone planting event And during the pandemic, as it was harder to do group volunteer events, we set up an at-home waste audit to help raise employee awareness of their waste, what kind of waste they're producing, and waste reduction. So we also are setting up various computer program trainings to try to switch everyone over to electronic versus paper markups for various plans. So we set up Bluebeam trainings, Adobe trainings, just to encourage virtual markups of plans and reports versus printing out and using more paper. And we also, we continue to send out yearly surveys for different sustainable practices in the office to try to guide our policies towards carbon reduction and changing employee behavior in that way.
That's impressive. You guys have really done a lot of work and really committed to this. One last question for both of you then. So what is the marketing benefit of being able to say that you're a carbon neutral firm? Linda, you want to start us off quickly?
Sure. Well, if you're paying attention to carbon neutrality, it's all over the news right now. I mean, companies really the world over are really focused on their ESG programs, their sustainability initiatives. So it's certainly a marketing advantage to be able to show what your company is doing in the area of carbon emission reductions, sustainable activities, and carbon neutrality. It's important to your employees, it's important to your clients, your customers, your stakeholders. So it's a distinct advantage.
Great, thank you. Ellen, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
So basically, I would agree with Linda. We use it for essentially that. We find it's a big benefit to advertise this to our clients that we're carbon neutral, to our employees and prospective employees. And we even include this in our email signatures to pour it out.
All right, great. Hey, I want to thank you both for joining me on our seminar today. And I want to remind our viewers that if they have questions for you, that they can go to centralbuckschamber.org/calendar, or they can click on a link that they'll be receiving the next week to go to a live Zoom event on Friday, May 7th at 12 p.m., where our speakers are going to be here to answer your questions live. I want to thank you both, and I wish you both a good day. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Scott.
Today, I'm joined by George Mullikin with Clear Result. Welcome, George.
Thanks. Happy to be with you.
Good to have you too. Thank you very much. So what's a good indicator that a homeowner should actually need a home energy audit?
Well, some common reasons that people will get energy audits are to address high bills. So if you feel like your bill is higher than than your neighbors or higher than you want to be paying, that would be a good reason to get an energy audit. Another good reason would be if you have an area of your home which is uncomfortable, maybe a bedroom that tends to be hot in the summer or cold in the wintertime. Those are good indicators or something that you could address with an energy audit.
Great. So when I gave thought to this to myself, I thought, so what does a homeowner actually have to do to prepare for an energy audit? I mean, what I'm asking you, George, is do I need to clean the whole house before you guys get there?
Well, there are a few small things to do to prepare, but cleaning the house is thankfully not one of them.
Excellent.
So I would recommend that you have a utility bill, some of your recent utility bills available to review with your auditor, so you can look at maybe your past usages of energy. The auditor is going to want access to some of those crawl spaces and attics. So you want to make a little space to put down a ladder. The auditor will bring their own ladder, but they'll need some space to put that down below access to the attic. They're going to want to look at your mechanical equipment like heating and cooling equipment and hot water heaters. So provide a little access to that. They'll want to see all the rooms and get into all the spaces of the home to really understand how it's put together and what the issues are and how we can make improvements. If you have a fireplace or a wood stove, I would recommend not using that a couple of days in advance of the visit, just to make sure everything is cool. If you want to go to the trouble of removing the ashes, that's great, but not necessary. Last thing I would mention is if you have pets, probably best idea is to keep the pets separate during the energy audit. You just never know how they're going to react. It's probably less stress for the humans and the pets if we keep them separated.
Great. So, okay, so I had your guys in, you've done the energy audit. What are some of the most common recommendations or results that homeowners can see from a home energy audit with a Clear Result?
That's a good question. there's a lot of variation that we see in the houses. You know, we've had many builders out there who put together the homes for us. We've, you know, remodelers will be going into homes, and even we'll be doing our own DIY work on homes. So we'll see a lot of variation. Definitely keeps it interesting for the auditors as they visit the homes. I would say the number one thing that we see is how to reduce the drafts in the home. We're all pretty keyed in. I know that insulation is important, but it took us a little while in the industry to realize just how important stopping the drafts and that air leakage is. To make the insulation work its best, we need to stop the air movement. And we found that even if we put in too much insulation without stopping the drafts, we can create some problems like rot in the cavities or maybe even mold. So reducing the drafts is a big deal. It's something we really want to pay attention to. The auditor will help locate those drafts and figure out how to close those off. I would mention that the drafts tend to be the thing that where we lose a lot of energy in our homes. It's a way, just like leaving your window open in the wintertime, it's the way for the air that we've spent money and time to, you know, heat in the wintertime and add a little bit of humidity for comfort. We leave that window open and now we lose that. And not only do we lose that condition there, but we replace it with the very cold and very dry air from outside. And just the opposite problem in the summertime, we've cooled the air inside, we've reduced the humidity so it's more comfortable, but then that open air window, that draft, is what allows that to escape, and then it's replaced with the hot and humid air from outside. So that's really the number one thing that we pay attention to when we're out doing energy audits. Of course, there's a lot of other things that we look at, including the equipment, making sure those are tuned up. Just like your car, you want to make sure it's clean and tuned up so it's operating efficiently. And there's always opportunity, many times opportunity to improve the insulation. And I would say another common one is improving the ductwork of forced air systems, because those can often be leaky, especially some of the older systems. That ductwork is leaky, and so it allows the air to leave in places that we really don't need it to be. We want to make sure that the air gets from the system to the intended target, like that bedroom, as best as possible.
Thanks. So I'm curious, how long does an average audit take? How long is one of your team members going to be in my house if I order an audit?
Average audit, you know, for medium-sized houses in the 3 to 4 hours range, but it can definitely vary. Depends on kind of what you're looking for from your auditor. It can be as simple as a visual inspection, might take an hour and a half to look through the home using the experience of the auditor and a keen eye for those upgrades and opportunities, or it can extend up to a really extensive survey of the home, looking at all the individual energy uses and how they play into the cost of heating and cooling the house.
So if I have you come to inspect my mansion, it's probably going to take a little longer, right?
Yes.
Sorry, no little mansion at our house. All right. So I'm curious, George, are there financial incentives for homeowners to do a home energy audit?
Yes, there are. The Pennsylvania has put into place programs where the larger utilities are actually required to reduce demand for electricity. Each utility has come up with a little bit different plan, but they have some variability there, but they all have some plan, and it's wide ranging. It covers commercial, businesses, and of course residential. It can be rebates for high efficiency appliances and lighting, and also for getting an audit done, or even if you have some of those bigger measures done for your house, like adding insulation or doing that draft stopping that we talked about, you're going to see some incentives from your utility company there. So great idea to check out your local utility to see what they have to offer.
Great. Hey, thank you, George. I want to thank you for being here today. And I want to let our viewers know that if you've got questions, go to centralbuckschamber.org, go to the calendar and click on the link and schedule it so you can join us live on Friday, May 7th, where you can talk to folks like George and some of our other speakers at the Carbon Neutrality Environmental Seminar and ask them your questions. So that's Friday, May 7th, 12 p.m. I want to thank all of you and have a great day. Today I'm joined by Tom Marino with Atrium Financial. Welcome, Tom.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, and happy Earth Day.
Yes, thank you. Happy Earth Day to you too, Tom. Hey, many individuals are making decisions to live a more sustainable lifestyle, but I don't think a lot of them can realize that they can actually set up their investments portfolio to do the same. Can you tell us a little bit about how folks can do that?
Yeah, so one of the biggest thing you're starting to see a lot of press on is something called ESG ESG investing, and what that really stands for is environmental, social, and governance. So on a basic level, environment deals with carbon footprints, fossil fuels, how they're running their business. On social, it deals with their policies as a corporation, and on governance, it deals with how their boards are being running, diversity, and other options there. And companies that are publicly traded are starting to produce this, and you can now screen for what they call ESG investing.
So if I am all about carbon neutrality, I can have my investment portfolio to do the same thing?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we look for from clients is to figure out what their goals and objectives are. Sit down with them and discuss with them what screening tools that they have, a desire to screen for. So one of the issues that may come up is as your portfolios change in value, you have different options. So if someone has an investment as low as, say, $10,000, that's going to be a different solution than an investment for $500,000. And it allows you to get more customized the larger the portfolio you have.
That's good to know. So let's say that I'm a business owner and I offer a 401k program for my team. What can I do? Can I do a similar type of screening for that?
Yeah, so 401k ESG investing is relatively been changing over the past several months, really over the past year. So in June of 2020, the executive branch of the federal government oversees something called the Department of Labor, other words known as the DOL, and they manage all ERISA plans, which are basically the rules and regulations of retirement plans, 401ks falling under that category. One of the compliance rules that was passed in June of 2020 was that from a fiduciary standpoint, ESG investing wasn't considered fiduciary responsible. That law or ruling went into effect in November of 2020. And with the change of administrations at the executive office that oversees the DOL, they decided in March 10th of 2021 that those rulings will not be enforced. So what this has to do with is, first of all, your plan investments have to be overseen by someone that has a fiduciary responsibility. So the employer has a responsibility of being a fiduciary to their employees, and they have to make sure the investments in there are suitable for everyone. Now with this new ruling allowed out, plan managers can go back to their investment choices and add ESG investings without being in violation of their fiduciary responsibilities.
That's pretty cool then. So I could basically dictate that the 401k I pay for as a business owner would only really allow the options that reflect my values. Is that right, Tom?
That's right. And they're done through a series of either mutual funds or exchange traded funds, or ETFs as they may be known. They can be offered inside your 401k investment vehicle. Generally, these are reviewed. What I would recommend is if it's something that you want to pursue, you're always welcome to call me and I can go over some of those options, or talk to your plan advisor that can say, hey, these are the options that we want to pursue. Will we be fiduciarily,
Sure,
responsible if we bring these into place? And the answer is yes, you can do that. So
okay.
So one of the things to look at, though, I was just going to point out on that, is the biggest one with deal with carbon footprint is really dealing with fossil fuels. And so there's a lot of mutual funds out there now. There are benchmarks out there now that specifically track fossil fuels and how companies are having a policy towards that.
Great. So, your business, just like my business in banking, is the alphabet soup of acronyms. So tell me more about MEAPs and how they could benefit Central Chamber Commerce members.
Yeah, so MEPs are under the Secure Act of actually passed in December of 2019. This was a pre-COVID rule. There's been a lot of changes with federal legislation and retirement plans over the past year. It's been moving quite fast. So the Secure Act of 2019 started modifying MEPs that allowed non-related businesses to form a coalition and basically offer a 401k plan. So effective January 1st of 2021, these plans can now actually exist. So it was actually about a year and a half process to get these set up. Now companies can actually, you might start seeing them. So if you're a chamberman member, you can find other organizations out there that you can now participate in their 401k plan. You don't have to hold that on your own. If you want more details on those, more than welcome to reach out to me. You'll see some other acronyms out there. So MEP, you'll also see PEPs that are out there. And really what they are is their group. Think of it as like a group benefit 401k that isn't necessarily related or required that the businesses have a joint interest anymore, which was the case before the Secure Act was passed.
Sounds like that could mean some significant savings for business owners as well too. So that's good to know, Tom.
Yeah, so a lot of small businesses right now use SEPs. Might be the most common one that we see out there. So they don't like the expenses incurred of a 401k plan specifically. And those expenses can now be shared by the entire group, which is really how the larger employers do it anyway. They share that cost across a lot bigger groups, and it becomes very cost efficient. So we do anticipate we're going to see a lot of these popping up. So I'd advise employers to be on the lookout for them and see how they can participate in these. And like I said, if you have questions, give me a call and we can.
I got a better idea, Tom. I got an idea. Tom, I want to thank you first off for being my guest this morning and appreciate it. But if our viewers have questions, they could go to the centralbuckschamber.com, go on the calendar, click on the link for May 7th. That's a Friday at 12 o'clock. We're going to have Tom back as well as all the other speakers for our carbon neutrality environmental seminar. And you can ask them your questions live on a Zoom event right then. All right. Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate the time you had with us today. And I want to thank our viewers and have a great day. Happy Earth Day.
Hey, happy Earth Day as well. Pleasure.